Oh, no. I'm not Karen. Good evening. But can you hear me? Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome to our 35th season. We could not be happier and prouder to close our summer than with this wonderful, amazing author, Karin Slaughter. No, I know. Today is a special day because this is the official launch of Karin Slaughter's 25th book. Yes. Yes. We are proud and humble that she chose Pittsburgh to celebrate this milestone. And thank you. Thank you. My name is Soni Toneme, and it is my privilege to serve as executive director of this wonderful organization, Pittsburgh Arts and Lectures. On behalf of our board, our staff, and amazing volunteers, welcome to our New and Noted lecture with Karin Slaughter. New and Noted is presented in partnership with the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh, and whose beautiful home we find ourselves this evening. Mystery Lovers Bookshop is here with signed copies of We Are All Guilty Here and other books by Karin Slaughter. After the program, Karin has kindly agreed to personalize your books. The sign-in will start immediately after the event. We will have two lines. One will start here, the sign-in line will start right here, and we'll wind down the hall, right? And there is going to be a second line for those of you who have not purchased your other copies and the copies of We Are All Guilty. It will start right in front of this table and go this way. Once you get your new copy, we ask that you join the end of the line so we can keep it moving, right? Tonight's event format is a conversation between Karin and me. I am honored, followed by an audience Q&A. We are going to take questions from you, and we only ask that if you have a question to raise your hand, and one or two of our employees and volunteers will pass around the microphone. An important reminder that when you arrived today, you received bingo cards. Do you have your bingo cards? Awesome. If you do not have a bingo card, please let someone know. We need you to win. And so I had to Google how to play bingo. I never played it. I know. I'm ashamed to say it. And I am really excited. So you know the rules. You know what happens. So if you get bingo, what do you do? Bingo. Oh, I was thinking about standing and yelling bingo, but you can sit and yell bingo. And we have amazing gifts for you for 3 winners. So we are really, really excited. Before we hear from Karin Slaughter, and I know that's why you are all here, I do have some announcements, unfortunately. Or fortunately for me. Our next event will be with the author of Braiding Sweetgrass and Time 100 Person of the Year, Robin Wall Kimmerer. She has a new book out. It's a children's book, but I read it and I find that, yeah, this is also for me too. The title is A Bird Finds Her Gift. It's a beautiful book. The event will be held here on September 3rd at 6 p.m. It is free and open to all. However, because this is Robin Wall Kimmerer, we encourage you to register in advance. Between 4 to 6 p.m. outside the hall here in Shenley, we are going to have a food truck because I know a lot of you will be bringing your kids and pick them up from schools, and you can come here and we will be your after school program. And every meal that you buy, we will offer a drink. So the drink will be on us. And that is going to be on September 3rd. We are going to follow on September 15 with the first 10 evenings lectures of the season with the Pulitzer Prize finalist and historian Jill Lepore. Jill's new book is We the People. It's a history of our Constitution, very apropos as we prepare to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Constitution. The event will be at the Carnegie Music Hall in the same building here, but at front. And that is going to be September 15 at 7:30 p.m. You can buy your tickets on our website. We will continue the month of September with the same caliber of lectures that we are known for on September 18, when we welcome the phenomenal YA author Angie Thomas with a new book, Nick Blake and the Remarkables, the Book of Anansi. The event is free and will be held here. We also encourage you to go on our website to reserve your seat. So, and it's going to be at 6 p.m. And just like Robin's event, we're going to have the food truck back here where you buy a meal and we give you a drink. So do bring the whole family. And finally, we will close September with the exceptional, the amazing author of Eat, Pray, Love, and City of Girl, Elizabeth Gilbert, for a 10 evenings lecture on September 29th at the Carnegie Music Hall. You will not want to miss her visit to Pittsburgh. We ask that you go to our website and you get your ticket. The event will be at 7:30 p.m. at the Carnegie Music Hall. You can go to our website to get your ticket, or you can give us a call between Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Finally, we ask that you refrain from using flash photography and taking videos during the event. This concludes our announcements for tonight. Karin Slaughter needs no introduction, but for the three of you who do not know who she is, it is my pleasure to introduce her. Karin Slaughter is one of the world's most popular storytellers. She is the author of more than 20 instant New York Times best-selling novels, including the Edgar-nominated Cop Town and standalone novels, The Good Daughter and Pretty Girls. An internationally best-selling author, Slaughter is published in 120 countries with more than 40 million copies sold across the globe. Her books have been adapted to TV and movies. Pieces of Her is now a #1 Netflix original series. Will Trent, as you all know, is now on ABC and streaming on Hulu. The Good Daughter is now on, will soon be a limited series starring Byrne, Meghann Fahy, and my favorite, all-time favorite, Olivia Williams. And further projects are in development. Karin Slaughter is the founder of the Save the Libraries Project, a nonprofit organization established to support libraries and library programming. It is fitting that her 25th book is being launched at a library. A native of Georgia, she lives in Atlanta. It is my privilege and honor to ask you to help me give a warm Pittsburgh welcome to Karin Slaughter. Good to see you.
Wait, I gotta get you. Woo!
Let's ask him to put the books up.
Oh yeah, put the books
Put
up.
the books up. If you have your book.
We know where the party people are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I said we know where the party people are up there.
How are you, Karin? Wonderful. Do you really have bingo?
No.
We didn't start yet.
No, we haven't started
We
yet.
haven't started yet. We haven't
Yes,
started
yeah.
yet. All that, yes. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
How tired are you? Because you've been everywhere.
I'm not really tired yet. I will be by the end of the week, but in the beginning, where I'm on my first publication day, and it's pretty exciting, especially to be at the 25th book and to be here in Pittsburgh. And I have my friends from the Vendor Leadership Academy here.
Yes.
Who help find employment for disabled people, among many other things. So I'm really happy they're here. The last time I was in Pittsburgh, I had 4 people come to see me, and they were all from the Vendor Leadership Academy. So now I'm glad that other people have joined them.
Yeah. That was for book 1. This is the 25th book. And I wanted to ask, when did you start writing, right? When did you know that you were going to be a writer?
Well, I mean, I think you don't choose to be a writer. Writing chooses you. And we were talking about this year from Haiti, which has a great storytelling tradition. And in the American South, we also have, we're a very agrarian society. So there was lots of sitting around waiting for corn to grow. And there was lots of storytelling in my family. And usually they were cautionary tales. My father is the father of 3 girls. So, you know, they were about the little girl who touched the thermostat and died. Or the little girl who left the refrigerator open too long and died. So we were all terrified, but he loved telling us stories. And so it seemed really natural for me when I, you know, could hold a pen finally, or crayons or whatever, to start telling my own stories. And most of them were about my sisters. Everybody's writing on their bingo card. That's a gimme. But my sisters are older. I'm the youngest, so obviously the most perfect. And at 6 and 7 years old, my stories were about them being mutilated or murdered or kidnapped. And there wasn't really a narrative arc. It was all this happy ending where I was an only child. And my father loved these stories. He thought they were wonderful, and he paid me $0.25 every time I wrote one. And so that's how I made my candy money, was writing stories. So I would say 6 or 7 is when I really found my voice.
Wow. I'm really thankful to your dad. Yes. I wanted to talk a little bit about the writing process because everyone here, they have the book, they have not read it. We're going to talk a little bit about the book, but I want to talk a little bit about the previous books and a little bit. But I wanted to ask, 25 books. I know the best writers maybe have 5, right? And you published 25 books. I cannot, I don't think I can do something great 2 times. And you did 25 times. So there's a lot of discipline there, right? Good. And I wanted to ask, how do you do it, right? How do you keep writing, and what are the processes that you put in place for you to keep writing? Because we all have those amazing stories, but we don't have the capacity, right, to write them down. So how do you do it? What does the writing process look like?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of ways to answer that question. I mean, just from a very technical point of view, I sit down and I write, right? I mean, and it sounds funny to say that, but a lot of people, probably most people in here, have really exceptional ideas for novels or stories. And the difference is they don't sit down and figure out how to tell the story. And that's the discipline of being a writer, is to sit in your chair every day and work through how to express the idea through character and story and a mastery of language and an understanding of tension and all these other things that you, I think, have a natural ability, but you have to really foster it and bring it out. On a larger scale, 25 novels, you could say that I'm writing the same thing that Lee Child or Mike Connolly or, any other writer. We're writing about bad things happening and someone figuring it out, and the bad person is caught in the end, right? So we're writing fantasy because it doesn't seem like bad people get caught that much anymore. But every single book I write, I have a different idea or a different way of bringing us into the story. And I'm fascinated by people. I always have been. And I love finding something new and interesting and different to say every time I write a book. And I think that's probably why I've got this many stories, is because I'm always trying to think of a new, even with Sarah Linton, who I've been writing about since Grant County. I know so many things about her I haven't shared yet. There's going to be more Will Trent novels. Don't worry, I haven't given up on Will. I love writing. It's my passion. And, as I've hit 25, everybody's talking about my career and how long it is, which is basically a really polite way of saying I've gotten older. And it reminds me when I was in my first signing event, there were about 3 or 4 people, so it was not as big as when Joyce and her crew were here in Pittsburgh 20 years ago to see me. But this woman came up to me and she said, "Do you remember me from kindergarten?" And, a lot of times I'll get that, and it's someone from high school, and I say, "No," and I'm thinking, there's a reason we lost touch. And kindergarten, you can forgive me, but she said, "I remember you because when we were in kindergarten, the teacher asked us what we want to be when we grow up." And now I know, knowing teachers, that she was probably looking for ideas to get out of education. This woman said, "You wanted to be a writer, and I wanted to be divorced from a very wealthy man." And I was like, "Sheila?" But we're the only two who are doing what we wanted to do. And she's arguably better at it because she married 2 wealthy men.
I think I need to be composed, but it's this is
Y'all, Liz Gilbert ain't gonna be this funny. I'm just gonna tell you
yes. I really hope not, because I want to be composed. I want to ask about telling the stories, right? For me, even when I'm asking a question, I have no idea where I'm going to end with that question. So when you start writing a story, right? Do you know? Because I'm reading this book, and I was like, there's no way she knew where this was going.
Yeah, I always do.
You do?
100%. For me, it's very much a hallmark of my storytelling that I want you guys to, when you get to the end, say, "Oh, I can't believe, yes, of course." I don't want you to say, "What the hell just happened," right? And we've all been on page like 450 of a 500-page book, and we're like, this is when the author figured out who did it, right? And so I always know. I don't know that every single word on the page, but before I sit down and start writing, I have it all mapped out. Uh-oh. Are you lying?
When you started talking.
Okay. It's going to be an arm wrestle.
It's going to be an arm wrestle. Yeah, we have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many bangles we have?
Okay.
3?
3? 3 total?
3 total? 3 total?
4?
4 bangles?
Oh gosh.
Oh gosh.
It's going to be a fight breaking out.
We have to
here.
have a fight.
Yeah, we'll have to do 4.
We have to have a fight.
Yeah.
We have to have 4.
Yeah, let's do 4.
Let's do 4.
Yeah.
Okay. We are going to do 4 bangles. We're good. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
there will be.
Ladies, calm down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can calm down. We're going to have the 4 bangles. 1, 2, 3, 4.
4 was over
4.
here.
4 is over here.
Yeah.
Perfect?
Great.
Great. Okay, we have all of the winners. That's you. Okay, so you have everything.
I
now.
do, yeah, and also the twists and the turns and all of that. You know, they're just so important to the pace of the story.
Yeah.
And what I really want when you read the novel, I've noticed that TikTokers really talk about how many pages there are. Like it's sort of onerous if there's more than 300. But I want it to move very quickly, so you're not counting pages. You're just wanting to keep turning pages, and so part of that skill, for me, is to be able to really understand not just what's happening, but why it's happening and how it's going to affect the story and how it's going to change how the characters respond to it.
Yeah, that's really brilliant because you will be reading it and then you will get in the middle of the story. It's like, oh, this is great. This is the happy ending you are looking for. There's more to the story, so keep going as you will not be able to stop anyway. So I wanted to ask now, Will Trent. Everyone wants to know about Will Trent, right? And you read Will Trent. Some of you watch Will Trent, and I want to talk about watching Will Trent. Now, a lot of your books are turned into TV shows and movies, and you're involved in the process. Morris. How is it as a writer, right, writing these books and then writing for TV or collaborating with writers on TV, and how do you watch your work coming to the screen? How does that feel? Right? But first, what is the difference between writing a book, a novel, and writing for a TV and a TV show?
Well, it's so different. It's really a different muscle, if I can say that. Hopefully no doctors will get angry at me. It's a different muscle in your brain, right? But I love writing dialogue, and I think that, you know, my dialogue is pretty accurate to how people, at least in the South, speak. And so in that regard, it wasn't that hard writing scripts, which are just basically dialogue with very little direction. You know, you don't want to give the actors, try to control the actors and give them too much direction. You just want to indicate what the emotion is. And so it was a different skill. I was really eager to learn it. I haven't written anything for Will Trent or pieces of her, but I wrote all of the episodes for the adaptation of The Good Daughter, and we're editing it right now. It'll be out on Peacock next year. And it was an interesting, you know, at first I just started, I thought, well, let me see if I can do this, and I didn't tell anyone I was doing it. And then I told my agent, you know, because, you know, once you have a book adapted, everybody's like, you should write it, you should, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And I think part of the reason I did it is because I said I didn't want to do it, because I hate being told what to do, even if it's by myself. And so I called my agent and I said, I actually did try this. And she said, oh, great. Well, you know, how far did you get? And I said, I wrote the whole season, all 6 episodes. And she said, okay. You know, like, sure you did. She said, send them to me. And then she read them and she said, you can really do this. And the producer who had actually produced pieces of her was interested in it, and it all worked out. I mean, this is making it sound really easy. It was not easy, but it all came together, and Peacock gave us the green light, and it was really remarkable. But with Will Trent, I mean, I love Will Trent, the show.
Yeah. I
think they've done an amazing job. I know anyone who has a question locked and loaded about how Ramon does not look like Will Trent in the books, we will now address this. Ramon is a profoundly sexy man. That is why most of you like Will Trent. Just be honest. He is also a fictional character, which is why he takes out the trash and picks up his socks. You know, you could have someone who looks like him who doesn't understand the character, or you can have someone like Ramon who really understands the character and is really dedicated to getting the heart of Will, and who has embraced the idea of Will's disability and learning about it. And he worked with an expert and really did a deep dive into dyslexia and how that would manifest itself, how it makes you feel. The writers were really involved with that and just capturing the character in a very realistic way. It is ABC, so Angie will not be shooting heroin with her pimp. But I don't know. You never know. Disney might go a little crazy. But, so there are definitely changes. But I love what they're doing. I mean, it's just amazing.
Really,
And someone mentioned that Betty wasn't coming back. That is not true. Betty will be back. Betty, and we all understand Betty is the real star of the show. So nothing will happen to her. Actually, Belle, who plays Betty, is amazing, but she's a little old. And we're all like, how old is she? And but Chihuahuas can live for 20 years, so we've got at least that long. Yeah.
Wonderful. I want to ask about new project, right? Right now, you just finished writing this series for The Good Daughter. Would you ever write a movie or a TV show that is not based on your books, that you have this idea and you can see it only in the screen, not in the book?
I might, but the thing that I think made it easier for me to adapt The Good Daughter is I had already written the book. And so I knew these characters very intimately. And I understood their motivations, and I understood the cadence of their language. It's a very important thing to me. I love Aaron Sorkin, but every character talks exactly the same way. And I work very hard to make sure that the characters who are in the books all have their own way of speaking, or in the case of a character here, Emmy, she's fluent in silence, and she doesn't speak a lot. But I just really worked so hard on that. And so I don't know that it would be as easy to do something from scratch, but also, I'd be kind of stupid because I can sell a book and then sell a screenplay, so I should do both, right?
Right? Yes, I did not think of that. Yes. Or maybe tune the TV show. Have they ever done that? Tune a TV
Yeah,
show?
unfortunately, they have turned books, TV shows have had books made and, adapted. Okay. Yeah, it's not as usually straight. Some of the Star Trek ones are good, I'll say that.
That is true. I want to talk about this wonderful book. It's completely new, completely different than any other book that you have. This is very much a book about the whole town, right? I feel like it touch on the lives of everyone in town. The title, We Are All Guilty here as well. We are all guilty. They're all guilty. I wanted to ask about I don't want to spoil it, but can you tell us a little bit about this book, and most importantly, who is your favorite character?
Well, it's hard to say who my favorite character is because I love them all. It's like love the one you're with. I love them when I'm writing them. But it's hard to talk about the plot without giving a lot away, but I can tell you what's on the flap of the book. And it's that it starts on the 4th of July and 2 young teenage girls are abducted. And Emmy Clifton is there. She's a deputy with the sheriff's office, and her father is the sheriff. And they're part of the Clifton family, and they are in Clifton County. And so this one family has great influence in Clifton County. The seat of the county is North Falls. And I would be lying if I said I wasn't influenced a little bit by the Murdaugh murders. Because, but don't worry, it's not the Murdaugh murders. It's just, I think we in America, we don't like royalty in America. We like it to stay in England, right? That's why we're here and they're there. And we throw a bunch of tea in a bay for that. But I really like that idealized version of these dynastic families that tend to run small towns. And there's usually a cluster of them, and they've always run things. And at a certain point, it's fantastic, and then it crosses over and it becomes extremely corrupt. And they're not holding up the rules for everybody, especially their inside group. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that with my writing. And, you know, small towns are great. Everybody loves small towns, even though fewer than 18% of Americans live in small towns, like the technical definition of a small town. We're most in medium-sized towns and cities. And so this is like small to medium-sized county. And I learned a lot when I was writing my Grant County novels, which is don't make it too small or you'll run out of people to murder. You know, at a certain point, you're like, wow, there's rapists and pedophiles. It's like worse than Congress. We just gotta, no one would want to live here. And so I thought, okay, well, this is the first time in my career I knew I was deliberately writing a series. And so I was able to build out this world where, you know, you have a part of a city where a factory is, an auto factory, and you have a technical college in a different city, and you have outlet malls, and so there's lots of people coming in and out of this medium-sized county. And it's also on the Flint River. And if you've ever been to the Atlanta airport, which I'm assuming is every person here who has ever been on an airplane, you were actually on the headwaters of the Flint River. They are under the Atlanta airport. And it felt like kismet to me when I learned that fact, to have something on the Flint, because, you know, I'm published in a lot of countries. So probably everybody from every country I'm published in at some time, unfortunately, has been in the Atlanta airport.
Good. I have one last question, and then we will be passing the microphones for you to ask the important questions. I want to ask, this is their first book in the series. When can we expect the second one? Do you have it?
Well, you asked me to come here. I was happy at home in my pajamas. You made me put on my business pajamas to come out. Yeah, I'm working on the follow-up to this, and after that, there will be another Will Trent. But hopefully, then you'll be saying, "When's the next North Falls?" Right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sure after you finish reading this book, you will be asking the same questions, because there's so much there and so many wonderful characters that we will be following and we will continue to love. Now we want to hear your questions. And if you have a question, we are going to bring your microphone here. We have someone here. Charlie. Yep. Thank you, Kevin. Charlie.
Oh, I know. It's embarrassed me.
Hello. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. Hi. Huge fan. I love you to death. I just had a question about the show. I know, like, you have other people that are creating it, and but what made you start with Will and not have like Jeffrey and Sarah, and like have it be, I guess, longer, and have that be the start? I was just curious if you knew, or if like where the idea to start with Will came from.
Well, those are the books they optioned, so that was a decision made. But Sarah doesn't meet Will for a few books, so you have to give him time to become the sort of man that Sarah Linton would be interested in. To like put it in understandable language, he needs to get his shit together. And extract himself a little from Angie. I would say stay tuned.
I like your shirt, by the way.
Thank you. Oh, great.
Beautiful. We have a question.
Hi, I was wondering if there will be a follow-up from Cop Town.
You know, when you said follow-up, I knew you were going to say Cop Town. So, you know, I love that book, and I would love to write a follow-up. When I wrote Cop Town, it's set in the 1970s. It's about Atlanta police women in the 70s. And I had such a great time. I mean, it was such a crazy period in American history, you know? I mean, it was just like we had just gotten, you know, reproductive rights, women's rights, rights for minorities, you know, so much was happening. And you know, before these landmark court cases, women couldn't even get checking accounts on their own, and they couldn't get bank cards or anything like that. Thank God we're not ever going to go back to that. And so I really loved the research of it, and I'd love to go into the 1980s, because in Atlanta, in the 80s, we had the Atlanta child murders. And so a lot of the early cases where they found these murdered children, back then, if it was something that, in the slang of the police, if it went into a vagina or came out of a vagina, then they would let the women handle the investigation, right? And so women were just sort of put on these early cases of murdered children. And then someone realized there was a serial killer, and they took it away from the women. And the women were all coordinating across counties to investigate this. And the men were very much siloed in their own counties and wouldn't talk to each other. And eventually they had to send in the director of the CIA, a man named George Bush, who solved it in one day. So there's a lot to write about that. And I would love to do a follow-up, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Hi. I'm sure a lot of work goes into the book before publication day. Since today is the published day, what does publication day look like for you? Now that, you know, we're 25 books in, what does that look like for you?
So I woke up super early to get on the flight. And I had to do phone interviews and things like that, and answer emails, everybody saying, hey, congratulations. And then I had to do a couple of lists that are going to appear on blogs of favorite books and things like that. And then I got to the hotel, and I was looking at the time, and I'm like, oh wow, I should eat an early dinner. And they said they didn't serve anything until 5 o'clock, and I was supposed to leave at 5:10. And so I begged them for whatever they had, and they brought me this giant charcuterie plate. And so, in great Pittsburgh tradition, I am so full of meat and cheese right now. And then I got here and signed a bunch of books. It's still exciting for me, though. It's super exciting. And I'm published in the Netherlands and in the UK first. And so I've been there and had my 25th celebration, and I was at my publishing house yesterday. We did a little small thing, and they know me so well. There was glitter on the table, and I looked at it. It was cats, drops of blood, and knives. That's why I'm here. You people really get me. So that's my day.
Question.
I kind of have a two-part question. When you did what you did to Jeffrey, what kind of response did you get? And the second part is, how soon after that or before that did you know you were going to put Sarah and Will together?
Yeah. Well, so it's been 16 years, and I still get that question. So, it was a very difficult decision to make, to stop writing my Grant County series. But in between the 5th and 6th book, the penultimate book, I wrote the first Will Trent novel, right? And so I knew when I wrote the 3rd novel, that there was only going to be 6 Grant County books. And I had already started thinking about Will, and that I would write 2 books before Sarah came into his world, because I wanted to keep writing about Sarah. And I knew that eventually I would have Will investigate one of Jeffrey's cases. And so all of that was really planned in my head before I got to it. But I will say that, you know, about 5 years ago, or I don't know, before the pandemic, everything's like before or after, I was in Germany, and if you've ever been to Germany, there's these delicious chocolates called cat's tongues. They're Germans, it's a weird name. But, you know, it's like these just gorgeous chocolates. They're some of my favorite. And these 3 women came up to me, and they gave me these cat's tongues. And normally, you know, I don't take any food from anyone, because there's, like, if you made it at home, no. Except once, that's a different story. And so I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And I got back to my room, and I was so looking forward to it. And I started to open it. I'm like, the seal is broken. Oh no. And there's a card in there, and it said, "We will never forgive you for Jeffrey." And I'm like, oh my God. Should I eat these? And so I called my publicist, because she was across the hall at the hotel, and I'm like, hey, do you like cat's tongues? And she said, oh, I love them, they're very good. And so I was like, oh, well, you can have some. And she came over and she got some. And then like the next day I'm like, hey, how you feeling? And she's like, great. I was like, did you eat those? And she said, oh, I ate them all. I'm like, okay. So I ate them. So yeah, but just a lot of people, when that book came out, I was at a conference and I got onto an elevator, and I had never felt so much hatred in my life. And you know, because my name was on my badge, I was like, you know, should I turn it around or whatever? And I did one of those. I was like, oh, I forgot my purse, darn! And I pressed like the next button and jumped off. And as the doors were closing, this woman threw the F-bomb at me. And she said, F you for what you did to Jeffrey. And I'm like, okay, all right, thank you. So I took a lot of heat for it, is what I'm saying. And, you know, just like security knows where you are, that's just how I'm going to finish it.
We like Will better.
Oh. Well, thank you.
Hi, I'm not going to stand up. Your writing process, I know we kind of touched on it a little bit before, and as somebody who doesn't look like a lot of people in here, I really do appreciate how you handle the South in the past, the words that you use and everything. Like my friends always ask, like, are you okay reading, you know, and you handle it with so much respect. But I'm also interested in how much research you've done, like medically and like police-wise, because whenever I hear anything from Sarah's perspective, I'm like, she has to know, like it's crazy how much, you know, just the vocabulary that you use, like as I am a teacher who still likes teaching. So I like learning more, and it's just kind of interesting. Every time I read your books, I feel like I've learned something new about either crimes against women or, you know, something just to that. So what does that look like?
Well, I mean, first, I write fiction, and it's really important to me that my research never intrude in the fact that I'm writing entertainment, right? But I do want it to appear as authentic as possible. And so from around the 3rd novel, I had this wonderful man he's retired now, but he was an emergency surgeon, emergency medical doctor in an ER in Texas, married to a pediatrician, whose brother was working at a body farm. So I'm like, this is the trifecta. But also, as a writer, you can find the world expert in green beans or whatever. And if they can't articulate to you in a way that is understandable to me as a layperson how to write about this thing, then they're worthless. And, you know, a lot of times I've had people who are medical examiners say, oh, I'd love to tell you, I'd help you or whatever. And I'll say, okay, well, what if this happened? And they say, well, that would never happen. And that's not the person who's going to help you, right? And David, my medical expert in Texas, will say, well, that probably would never happen, but if it did, this is what she would do. And he will send me, I was a horrible student. Like, everyone was surprised I graduated because I just was not, like, I was such a bad student. I started out in honors English, and I was such a smart ass. By the end of the year, I was in remedial English because they could not stand me, right? And I was still grading papers for the English teachers because I was not going to go to PE. So anyway, just a little bit about me. Had my period for 6 years. So I take all that information he gives me, and I find it fascinating, but I have to find a way to make it work in the book. And so he'll send me like an entire chapter on a flail chest or inserting a chest tube or whatever, and I have to find a way to make all these shortcuts and still make it believable. And it's the same with police officers. I have to figure out. And a lot of times, it was a lot easier in Grant County because Jeffrey was pretty much the law. And so I could say, in a big city force, they would never do this, but you could still investigate, right? And a lot of times it's just acknowledging what the process is and saying, I know I'm breaking these rules, but it has to feel believable because I write very realistic, naturalistic sorts of books. I'm not pulling away from things, and I need my reader to trust my ability to tell this story and keep you immersed in what feels like reality. And if something that is a small detail is off, then they're not going to buy the rest of it. So it's really important for me to get that balance.
Thank you.
Well, we should let this woman up here, and I have it on good authority. You don't need a microphone.
Hi. So I just want to tell you first that you have helped a lot of people in my women's group. Your stories have really helped us in my women's small group. So thank you for that. I really appreciate you and your work for trans women. You're it's in Ohio. It's a very small group for women that have had trauma that has happened, and we really appreciate it. So thank you. But I want to ask, for people that have started from writing, what it's like that are kind of stuck on certain chapters, what is something that you can tell them, push them through and get them to be okay, this is tight. Help me.
Well, first, thank you for sharing your story with me, with all of us, actually. So I guess what you're asking is a variation on writer's block.
Yes.
And so I don't think writer's block is, obviously that's the phrase for it, it's a real thing, but it's a lack of confidence. It's like questioning yourself. Because it's a really big thing to write and to write about things that feel personal. You're just really putting yourself out there. It's kind of like standing on a stage without your clothes on. And, if you are not confident in your ability, then you can start questioning yourself, and it just gets you in this really bad feedback loop. And I'm certainly, 25 books in, I can feel that sometimes tickling at my brain. And what I do is there's two things. I think, well, I'm just not ready to tell this part of the story yet. So I need to do something else and let my brain figure out how to get into it if I'm not finding an idea. But the other part of it is, the hard part of being a writer is putting your butt in the chair and making yourself do it. And I had this trick when I got to college. I know, this is shocking, I got into college. Early on my SATs, believe me, everyone was shocked. So I set the timer on the stove for 30 minutes, and I told myself, I'm gonna write for 30 minutes, and if it's crap, that's fine, but I'm not gonna stop writing until that buzzer goes off. And there has not been a time yet, knock on wood, that I haven't kept writing after that. It's mostly just giving yourself the space to say, I can delete all of this, but I've got to write something. And that's the work, is writing something every time you set out to do it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Over here, okay? Welcome to Pittsburgh. I'm over here, sorry. First of all, you probably know this, but if you ever want to stop writing books, you have a great career in stand-up.
I was.
I'm a little interested in the technical side, and it sounds strange, but people talk about how important covers are on books. And I wanted to know what you think about that, if that's really important, and at this point in your career, do you really pay attention to it, or you've got such a reputation that you don't really need to worry about it?
Well, here's the thing that happens, and this has happened for 25 years in 40 different countries, where they'll say, this is the jacket, sales really likes it, right? And early on I would say, oh, I don't like that. And they'd say, oh, we asked sales and they'll buy, Barnes & Noble will buy 50,000 fewer if it's not purple. And so they kind of push you into, and, I think I have pretty great jackets. And I also know that my Dutch jacket would not sell here because their markets are so different. So internationally, I don't have a lot of input other than, oh, there's a bear, on my jacket in Germany, which they got to #1. So what the hell do I know, right? One had a spider on it, #1. Okay, spiders, love them. In America, I am my own audience because I love reading. I'm constantly buying books. I love being surrounded by books. It's really my passion. And so I'm a book buyer. And I know, even though everyone says, oh, I don't care about the jacket, I actually do care about the jacket. And if it's a really boring jacket, I probably won't, even pick it up, right? I'm like a minor bird. I want the shiny one. And so I trust my publishers to know what's going to be on shelves in 6 months because they have it that far ahead of time. But I also feel like I have some input as a reader, and I'll say, oh, well, I hate those books that are all matte because they don't slide or anything, and your fingerprints get on them, and you're feeling a shame spiral. It's like, why are my hands so greasy? What did I touch? Right? The Cheetos, right? Why is there Cheeto dust on that? Who did that? So I don't like those, and that was my big for this one. That was my big contribution. Just please don't make it matte. They're great for airport sales because they won't slide on the trays. But you shouldn't put anything on those trays anyway. They're nasty.
Thank you. Okay, so I know what I'm going to get when I read one of your books. They're heavy. Sometimes the subjects are a lot. Like last year, I had to catch up on Will Trent. I read 3 in a row. So I needed some dragons and after that. How do you protect your mental health? Like, how do you unwind? Like, how do you protect your peace? Because, your books are amazing, but how do you walk away?
Well, I don't really, I stay in this headspace a lot, and I always have, and don't pretend like you're not gonna go and watch 48 Hours or Daylight, or, I see you. Because you're reading this shit too, right? You got your dragons, but there's murder. Exactly. One of my toughest novels is Pretty Girls, and it's a massive TikTok. I love it. I love seeing these videos, and they're like, "Why am I reading this? It's so terrifying. Why am I reading it?" And that's like a huge compliment to me because it's meant to be terrifying. A lot at this, if you look at the sales pattern, right before teenage girls are ready to go to college, their moms buy them pretty girls, right? So we've seen a recent spike. And so, you know, I think that women, just by our nature, we know about this stuff. We're always conscious of it. And I had one of those hilarious friends that women, or one of those hilarious conversations women have occasionally, where a bunch of us are sitting around and talking about the first time we were flashed. And none of us were over the age of 10. Right? And 3 of us were on school buses and just passed by some guy on the street who's like, oh, school bus, girls, why don't they show them my penis, right? And we're laughing, but it's like, what the hell is wrong, right? And so I think it's just something that every woman's aware of. And, you know, if this isn't your type of book, I say, please don't read it. There's so many other books you can read, and that's okay. I'll be okay. But if you want something more realistic and unflinching and visceral that will make you think and that will, you know, give you statistics that scare the pants off you, you know, like this one, where I'm talking about the statistics for missing children. You know, fewer than 1% of child abductions are stranger abductions. The rest is Uncle Bob or your pastor or whoever. And we teach children to be afraid of this thing that happens 1% of the time, when we should be saying, look, if he makes you uncomfortable, I don't care if he is my brother. You know, you tell me, right? And so that's just something I think for me is important to write about. And I'm very conscious with every novel I write that I'm writing about something that happens to someone every single day. If you take the world into account, every second of the day, particularly with sexual harassment, you know, every millisecond of the day, right? So when I'm talking about gendered violence, I want to make sure that I'm respectful. And, you know, Will Trent with Angie was a man who was being verbally abused by Angie, and that was really important for me to show. I have had novels where only men die, and I'm sorry, fellas, no one cared. No one cared. I mean, in Cop Town, I killed like 5 men, and they're like, wow, this isn't as violent. So ladies, your lives really matter if you're murdered, right? Otherwise, so that's what I'm thinking about when I'm writing is, you know, this is just something I'm aware of, and it's something we all live with, and so it doesn't stick with me like you would think. And lastly, I'll say, I know what's going to happen in the books, and so they're not scary to me because I've figured out everything. The hard part to write is not that moment of violence or that moment of, you know, horror. It's what happens next. How does Amy deal with the fact that one of these girls who's abducted is her best friend's stepdaughter? And how does she deal with the fact that that daughter tried to talk to her and Amy didn't have time for her? And what could she have done to make it different? That's the sort of thing that sticks with me.
Thank you. I had one last question to ask, because you mentioned someone was asking about why you can be a stand-up comedian.
Yes.
My fault.
Comic relief.
Yeah, that was not a reason.
What was my publication on?
Yes.
I was electrocuted. It's okay. Worse has happened.
Yeah, so listen, you can be a stand-up comedian. You're extremely funny, and as you just mentioned, the subject matter is very heavy, right?
Yes.
Things are happening, people are going through things, right? And I wanted to ask, did you become funny as a way to process life, or were you always funny like that? Do you think you were funny later in life?
Adult onset. You know, I I've always had a sense of humor because of my dad, and my dad had a very wicked sense of humor. But I had someone come to me who was a friend of mine to one of my events, and she said, do you remember that time your dad scared the shit out of us? And I was like, you've got to be more specific. And she said, he put a ladder against the window, and I'm like, you got to be more specific. And so my dad climbed up this ladder during one of my sleepovers, and he was gonna, like, I don't know, he had this weird doll he was gonna hold up to the window, and he was so tickled about how scared we were gonna be that he was laughing so hard he slipped on the ladder and he fell. So, you know, that's just what I had to live with, you know. And he would always tell us these horrible stories about things that happened to people who weren't doing what they were supposed to do. And I remember we would go visit my grandmother's grave after she died, obviously. And my dad would take us on Easter Sunday. So we were all in like our little dresses with the patent leather shoes and the ruffled underwear, and you know, all the men in church were flirting with my sister, even though she was like 12. And so we would all get in the car and we'd go to the grave, and there was a telephone line coming out of a grave up to a telephone pole. And anyone who's lived in the South knows that this actually happens. A preacher died, and he wanted to be able to call to get out of his grave when the rapture happened. And I mean, it's sort of like if you look, Harry Potter has glasses, but he's like a really strong wizard. It's like, maybe don't wear glasses, wizard, fix your eyes. It's like if the rapture happens, I think Jesus is going to be able to find him. But he was buried with a telephone to be able to call people. And it was before cell service, obviously. So they had this telephone line, and my dad would always make us go under that telephone line by that telephone pole. And one year he had a bell. And remember when phones sounded like bells? And he rang that bell, and none of us remember what happened next. The next memory we had, we're all lying stacked on top of each other. I was on the bottom, my two sisters on top, and the floorboard of the back seat of his car, and we were all covered in urine. And when people say, your books scare me, I say, at least you're not covered in urine.
Thank you so much, Karin. Please, yeah. Please help me say thank you to Karin. Congratulations. Congratulations, 25 books. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We are going to be signing books. Again, the line will start right here. We will open this door and we'll wind out the hall, and we'll be right back. Thank you so much.
If anyone has trouble getting up the stair on the stage, I'd be happy to come to you, just let someone know.
Okay, the bingo folks, you can meet us here.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I will take you.
Great.
We'll go back to this.
Yes.
Line forms this way and goes out the hall.
Be careful.
Can you hold that for me?
Oh, yes.
You?
Oh, you're gonna.
No.
Oh, Lord, they're
I'm so sorry.
yeah.
I thought it was this one.
It must have gotten hot.
Yes. Okay, I want